Okay, we are live. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is actually happening. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining and listening, whether if you're watching on live or you're going to be watching the pre-recorded version afterwards. I'm super excited about this. This is something that I've been wanting to do for forever. Which is basically just really empower female entrepreneurs. My whole little slogan is enable, empower, and encourage. And so that is my goal with this. So today I'm super excited because I have Lydia joining me on live. So Lydia is an awesome friend that I've known for forever. And as well, she actually has two businesses, one nonprofit and one for-profit. So once she gets on, I'm gonna go ahead and add her in. But yeah, I'm super excited about this. Like I said, I've been thinking about this like for a really long time, and I just decided like, okay, it's time to do it. I might as well just go for it and shoot for it, and just have no fear in the midst of doing all of this. So again, I'm like super excited about this. I have a lot of things planned, a lot of amazing female entrepreneurs that I'm going to be bringing on and talking with. All right, cool. I think she's on. Let's see if I can go ahead and add her in. Here we go. Let me wait for her to come on here. One sec. Lydia. Okay, perfect. Oh, is there? Oh, let me switch my camera. All right, awesome. One moment. Glitch. All right, cool. Hi,
Hey, girl.
Lydia. All right, cool. So just like a little backstory. So me and Lydia have been best friends for a very long time. Very long time. So she actually is the one who really kind of helped push me to get with my husband. So we've been friends for like a super long time. So I'm really excited to have her as my first guest on the show, and just talk with her and have convo and just be open. So if anybody has any questions or if you have anything to comment about anything we say, please comment and we'll do our best to answer. So Lydia, oh, look at you with your Be Resilient cup.
I always have to represent.
Oh my god, I love it. Okay, cool. So let's get to it. So Lydia, if you can please tell everybody about yourself, introduce yourself. How are you?
I'm great. My name is Lydia. I have been in business for 2 years, and I'm super excited because this is my first interview.
It's a first for both of us. No, yeah, for sure. And so Lydia has a nonprofit organization called Be Resilient, which is really focusing on helping people that either are having mental health issues or just want to seek help for mental health, whether it's therapy or whatever. And then as well, her other little venture that she's starting is Oasis Bridal, which is a bridal consignment shop. So tell us a little bit first about Be Resilient, because I know that's been like your baby for forever. So I really want to dive into Be Resilient, especially since it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So just tell us how you got started. What inspired you to get started with Be Resilient?
Honestly, like the first thing I was doing was a small group. I was meeting at Dunkin' Donuts, and whoever wanted to go to my small group, we would just talk about God and just random topics that were more relatable than what I was getting from at a church. At a church that I was going to. And then all of a sudden, I just felt God put on my heart to make a nonprofit with using the same name, because the group I made was called The Resilience. And I was like, you know, and then being resilient, it just means to be stronger, healthy, successful after something happens, and dealing with a lot of mental health issues in my family. Like my sister, I have a video on my IG TV of her story, but pretty much dealing with her mental health issues. And then I discovered that I had some that I dealt with, and I saw a repetitive pattern. So I just figured, you know, to have a place where students mostly can go to seek therapy, and nowadays, or just in general, therapy is very expensive. So the resilience shift is obviously to make awareness for mental health and also help fund students' mental health. So the goal is to, you know, provide free mental health services, or at least very low costing counseling and therapy, regardless of whichever therapy it is. So my goal is just to fund those things for students and make it more available, because they're not as available, and to let students know that it's okay to talk to someone.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it's not weird to express yourself, and how you feel is valid. And I know that a lot of people in society like to validate what's in or what's not, and it's okay to feel everything that you're going through, and just to know that how to manage it in a proper way, instead of just doing, you know, bad coping mechanisms.
Which there's a lot out there. So when you say students, do you mean like high school students, college students? Like what exactly is like your heart's mission, and like an age group that like you're reaching? Or if someone's interested in contacting Be Resilient, like would they be the candidates that, you know, that you would be able to help?
Honestly, in my opinion, any adult that ever goes to therapy, their problems always stem from childhood. Like I've been dealing with this since I was 7, since I was 9. This happened to me. I didn't know how to express myself. So I would say from any age, from like 7 to young adult, like 21, would be the main goal, because a lot of children, they just don't know how to explain themselves or feel safe enough or confident enough to talk. A lot of parents are their issue and why they can't do that. So my age range would be from 7 and up to 21 in regards to receiving. I would say after 18, our goal is like, you know, discount as much as possible. But if you can't have a job, we'll try to give free therapy sessions or counseling sessions to those age range.
Yeah, girl, therapy is not cheap.
It definitely is not, but it's an investment in your health. So
exactly.
You know, a lot of people pay for personal training. Therapy is just a mental,
which is like literally probably like $100 a session. Like even at the dance studio, like for private lessons or whatever, like it literally ranges from like $85 and upwards, like an hour. So
exactly, it's just how you perceive what you're paying for will
that's true.
It's expensive or not.
No, for sure. So what do you find is like one of, or some of like the major like mental health stigmas that you see students dealing with now, or that maybe people have, that they're, you know, they're scared to talk, or, you know, what do you find often?
Well, there's a couple of things. I would say that some people think getting a therapist is like buying a friend, but I don't agree to that. I think that you're paying for a professional person who is trained to ask you certain questions that you are going to reveal in yourself, and that it's non-biased. So that is something that to look at. Is like, it's not paying for a friend, you're paying for professional help in a medical field. Another stigma is what crazy is, you know, a lot of things, about changing the stigma, which in my opinion, I haven't heard what that actually meant. We hear, oh, let's change the stigma of mental health, but what is changing the stigma of mental health? It's acknowledging what it is, what certain mental health conditions are. You may, like, for example, if someone has a bipolar disorder, they're not going to be talking to you, drinking tea and smiling at you for 2 seconds, and then automatically just wants to throw a cup for no reason. And a lot of people think that's how it works. And it's not like that. It can be in waves. It could be a couple of days. You're really excited and you're extremely just ready to start something, and then the next couple of days you're completely down. But it's never something that's so like simultaneously, like, or instantaneously happening. So those are stigmas that you have, like, people need to be aware of. Like, someone's bipolar, they're not going to just rage at you for no reason in 2 seconds. Not all the time.
I mean, you never know. You never know.
Not
we don't
all
want to
the
put a
time.
stigma on that either.
well, not all the time. And I think another like important one is depression. Some people think people who are depressed are just people who are sad and dark and only wears dark clothing, and those are how people who look depressed are, like that's how they look, but that's not the case either. You could be next to someone who is smiling all the time and they're depressed. Depression comes in different forms, and depression can be hereditary as well. So
really, I didn't even know that.
Depression can be hereditary as well.
Wow.
So managing depression is important than trying to figure out if I look depressed or not. And a lot of people, if you ever hear on the news, oh, this person was the happiest person, you would have never thought that they were going through anything, because depression doesn't look like sadness or what, you know, the society makes sadness to look like. People are good at internalizing their depression, and then they can walk around with the most joyful, you know, smile, and they're not so happy inside.
No, that's so true. That's so true. I feel like there's been many people in my life, even like sometimes me, where it's like you can just get like so down and you won't even know. It's the people that sometimes you least expect that are like going through it. And I think that's why it's like lately it's been so important how especially mainstream media, everything, like everyone has been actually expressing like a healthy view on mental health and like the way that we should be approaching it, rather than just going with, you know, oh well, this is what it looks like and this is why you should follow it, and oh, if you're depressed then just get over it, or you know, sleep it off, or you know, whatever it is. And it just does so much more harm than good, especially even like relating to like being an entrepreneur. Like what would you say like might be some triggers as an entrepreneur that, you know, could lead to maybe you getting off balance with your mental health, or some solutions that you can use to stay balanced with your mental health as an entrepreneur? Because I know for me, oh my God, especially as being a mom and an entrepreneur, it's a wife, like the whole thing is crazy. All of the roles that I have, like the responsibility that I have. And I feel like oftentimes as an entrepreneur, like you just get so caught up. Like, I don't know if anybody else can relate, but like you just get so caught up in everything, all your responsibilities, all your roles, that you forget about you. And you wind up like going into this spiral that you're just like, how do I get out? Like, how do I get to be stable minded again? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how would you say, or have you dealt with that where you're like, okay, this is what I need to do, or this is what I found out can help, or, you know, as an entrepreneur?
So in my experience, when I feel unbalanced and I just feel overwhelmed, is when I'm taking on too many tasks at once. And entrepreneurs are people who are in the business of being okay with failure. And if you're a new entrepreneur and you're not familiar with risk taking, then you're gonna be disappointed very hard and very fast and very deeply when you
hashtag me when
you realize that this game of being an entrepreneur is hard, and doing things that you love is something that you take personally because it's in your heart. And when you get told something that, let's say, criticizes you, and you're like, oh, how dare you say that about my baby, my business, that it's in my heart, that's God told me it's in my heart. Why would you criticize that? And then you feel and take it, internalize it, and you feel depressed or sad, like, oh, this person, or just even build up hate towards a person that is trying to give, could be good criticism or corrective criticism. I would say whenever an entrepreneur is taking on too much task, or if you're taking on too much task, just take a step back and realize how throughout the tasks that you do, how many of them are personal growth or something that's self-care. And if you feel like you don't even have like an hour to yourself for just self-love or self-care, then you may just be taking on too many things. Because if you don't have at least an hour out of the 24 hours to focus on you and the things that you love, or just to better yourself, then you have too much stuff going on, and then you're not going to feel your best because you're not doing the best for yourself. So I would say just look at your schedule, you look at your task, evaluate how do I fit into the things that I'm doing for my business. Essentially, the business is for you, but there's other things that you need to do to just prepare yourself to be like internally joyful and internally at peace.
Yeah.
It's hard to be at peace when there's too many things going on in your mind. And then a lot of that can cause anxiety because you feel like you cannot get everything done. And then it's like, how am I supposed to get this project done that's due at this time when I have this thing done? Because we're putting too much on our plate. And then sometimes we just got to let a little bit go from our plate and put some stuff in for us to self-care, to reevaluate, and then we can be more efficient that way.
Most definitely. Most definitely. No, I completely agree with that. And that even reminded me of like the workshop that I just took yesterday, the Joyful Hustle, with Melody, how we were talking about aligning things within your purpose. And so it's like remembering your purpose to allow you to kind of pinpoint those things of what I need to drop and what I need to keep on pursuing in order to like make sure that like I'm, you know, aligning with what I'm meant to do and making it happen. So I think that would definitely, as well as like kind of just thinking back to, hey, what's my purpose? Why am I doing this in the first place? Like, what is it that I have like set out that God wants me to do with this? Or, you know, however it is that you feel. And then kind of like moving forward with that, being like, you know what? Okay, well, this looks great. I can probably make money off of it, but this doesn't align with my purpose. So let me not stress myself out. Let me just, you know, back it up, and then kind of like, you know, go from there and see, all right, I think I can do this, and kind of like self-manage it that way. Because, oh my God, like I can only imagine. What do you feel like is your purpose with, you know, Be Resilient? Like what is your purpose with that organization?
Well, my purpose is to have students, I'm like, my target audience are students, is to just have students be resilient, essentially. A lot of kids, they just deal with so much and they don't know how to navigate through what they're feeling or what they're going through, because a lot of the things that they're dealing with, they're going to still have to deal with until they're able to be on their own. My purpose is to give them an outlook or just an out to just talk to somebody, or just to figure out how they can manage what they're going through and push through that, and just to have some perseverance and some resilience. And that's my purpose, is for kids to be resilient. It's mine. It's the name of the
kids your soft spot? Like the song, like everybody has like a soft spot that
kids like, are my soft spot. If I hear a sad story about a child, I'm crying immediately. It's just in my own personal experience. If I knew how to cope with certain things that made me mad, I could have not lashed out as an adult at things or bottle things up. You know what I mean? So just making aware of how to manage your emotions and your feelings and what you're going through, and how to push through it while you're going through it.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, like you said, a lot of issues can stem from your childhood. So if you have something that like you didn't have like when you were little, but you can provide to someone else, I think it's like what makes like all the difference in like our world of the craziness that we're going through, especially with this whole like COVID-19 thing. Like the amount of kids that like I've read, or even like within social services, that are like going through things and they don't have like a quote unquote out or someone to talk to or speak to about the different issues that they're dealing with, I think is like the hardest thing to even hear about. So I'm totally like on point with exactly what you're saying. So the next thing that I want to ask you is, so obviously like focusing, everyone's like, focus on your mental health, you know, focus on your mental health. It's so important, blah, 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 blah. It's so important. So why is it, do you think, like now older, like you've gone through things, your experience, why is it really truly like so much more important to focus on like your mental health than it is like so your physical health, or like, you know, whatever it is? Like what would like maybe like 1, 2, 3 things that you would say is like top priority? I have to focus on, you know, making sure that I'm okay.
So I'm a believer of explaining things in the littlest ways, or just quote unquote dumbing it down. When I hear focus on your mental health, it's a broad statement essentially, because your mind is so open and so big and so deep. So when you're focusing on your mental health, you want to know what state is your mental being. Is it good? Is it bad? So when you're focusing on that, you're not focusing on the fact that it's there. You're focusing on what it's going through, or is your mind in a state of joy, or is it in a state of sadness? So, and how long has my brain has been focusing on that? So for example, just to explain, when you're focusing on your mental health, you want to focus on, am I anxious, and what's making me anxious? What's on my brain that's making me feel this way, and how can I improve that? So focusing on your mental health is more towards what is going on mentally than what it is.
Yeah. We actually have a question too. Okay, so our question is from Laura. She actually goes to my dance studio. She said, how can we balance our mental health care with those of our loved ones?
So
that's a good question.
I'm not sure I'm not sure what she meant exactly, but I'm gonna say, if you're like around your loved ones, you want to know how to balance it.
I think so. Laura, you're on here, right? I see you're on. But yeah, definitely, like basically, essentially that I think like balancing yourself along with others. So I feel like when you live in a house with either like your parents or your siblings, or you know what I mean, like making sure that you're balancing that act.
Okay.
Hey, you know what I mean?
So in my experience, I had to recognize who I could live with and who I could be around. And when it comes to family members, it's hard, or someone who lives in your household, because they're there. You have to make it a repetitive and consistent thing to put in mental health practices like meditation, and just being grounded and who you are as a person and where you're trying to be. So if someone you know could be narcissistic, you just got to remember who you are and who you're trying to be, and try to not let an open door in your brain to let that in to make you feel it's really hard to explain.
No, but I think I know exactly what you're saying. Like for me, for example, like I moved out when I was 18. Like I went to college, I went to UF, like I wasn't at home. And so then me and Giovanni were like, okay, like we're gonna buy a house, like we need to save money, you know, all of that. So we're like, all right, well, we're gonna move in with my mom temporarily, you know, and then this virus hit, and then everything went crazy and like pushed back our plans. But it was definitely a thing of like figuring out, okay, how can I like stay sane in an environment where it's like I'm older now, I have my own family now, I have my mom, I have my brothers, I have my husband, I have my kids, like I have all of these things that are pressuring me, and everybody has different personalities. And I was like, okay, how am I supposed to stay sane in this environment? Like, how am I supposed to do this? But I definitely think one of the biggest things was taking like some time out for myself. So I always would like step out into the patio and just sit for like 15 minutes. And like you said, Lydia, like meditate a little bit. My mom said amen. Hi, Scott. But yeah, so literally like I just had to like go for a walk with the kids, or you know, like take a step out, especially being in quarantine. Oh my god, I think being in quarantine has been the hardest thing for like mental health, because let me tell you, I've been pushed to limits that like I've never been pushed to. So like yeah, me and Lydia, we just had a conversation. We're like, girl, are you going crazy? Because I feel like I'm going crazy because this is so much. But legit, it sounds like you have a background in the church. Hallelujah. But yeah, so I think for me, it's always been kind of just like taking a walk, going outside, getting some fresh air. Like Lydia, for you, how have you been handling this quarantine and your mental health?
Honestly, it triggers a lot of things that I didn't deal with. Like I said, a lot of things that adults go to therapy for, just things that they haven't dealt with as a child, or they experienced as a child, or just didn't recognize in themselves. So being alone with your thoughts and yourself can be scary, because it's revealing itself to you by yourself. And for me, quarantine just
That's okay.
Showing me that today, that I've buried in a long time, and then just lashing out and not tackling those things that that would make me feel better. Like I'm a person that bottle things in and then explode.
Oh wait, Lydia, I can't really see your eyes.
Oh.
There you go.
I'm someone who bottles things in, and then one little thing turns me into like an angry mob.
Yeah, yeah.
So learning to communicate is something that I had to learn.
Definitely.
Through a quarantine, because it takes a lot to just deal with yourself.
Yeah, I think that was probably the truest statement, is dealing with yourself. I feel like this quarantine has made us be like so self-reflective, like in everything that we do. And I've had to like self-reflect a lot, because you don't realize it, but when you're going and going and going and going, especially as an entrepreneur, like you're running and running and running and running and running, you don't really ever get time to just like sit down and like be with your thoughts and be like working on yourself. Like there's really not too much time. Like you have to make time. And I think that was something that I was missing a lot. And I feel like this quarantine kind of taught me like how important it is to really like make that happen, because there were so many like undealt issues that I had personally, and I can definitely see now like how it had impacted not only myself but my marriage, my relationships with my friends, my business, like everything. So for sure, I definitely think like you're super on point with that. Okay, we have another question. My question is from Sarah. She says, do you feel that the church has a negative or has had a negative impact on how people feel about the importance or whatnot about mental health?
Ooh. I can talk about this for so long, but I will sum it up. I will sum it up. I think that depending on the theology of the church you're going to, because the church I go to now, they promote mental health and talking to therapists. They're partnered up with a therapy center. So the church that I go to now, they're all for it. I'm glad that I have a church that is for it. But
hashtag Heartway Church.
Hashtag Heartway Church. But in my experience, if you go to like a Baptist church or just come from a very just a Pentecostal church, everything relies on just pray through it and, don't put labels on things. But at the end of the day, science is just proof that God exists, and God
Amen, girl. Okay,
heals. God heals. God heals through people. He uses people just like he used the people in the Bible to write the Bible to help us become better people. The church, depending on the theology and depending on it just depends. Honestly, it depends. But they definitely throw it under the rug as something that in my experience, they just make it seem like, mental health, you're not going crazy. It's a spirit in you. You need to get it rebuked out of you. Or some people, they like to say, oh, that's just, for certain kind of class of people who likes to label things. And that's not what we grow up with, just, praying through, and praying works, not to knock down praying.
Yeah, of course.
But also just managing your emotions. No one in my experience, besides the church that I go to now, and I went to many churches, has explained how to manage your emotions, how to understand what you're going through. And if you got diagnosed with something, how to believe in God through your diagnosis. Like there's no real conversation. There's no real guidance, because they just feel like God is just going to instantaneously just poof, you have no more mental issues. Poof, you just, have no more anxiety and stop worrying. I mean, obviously give your worries to God, but God isn't just gonna do something without action, and you have to take action on yourself. Okay, God, I want the worry to be gone, but how am I gonna do it? God has placed certain people in certain careers as a gift to help you through it. So seeing a therapist isn't going against your beliefs. Seeing a therapist doesn't mean you're crazy. Seeing a therapist or a counselor doesn't mean you're paying for a friend, and the church doesn't talk about it enough to the church doesn't talk about it enough, that there's people who are gifts, and there's people who have spiritual gifts to help guide people through certain times. They just view it as a like pop culture more than a spiritual thing, when it's deeper than that. And I always say it's beyond the Bible, in my opinion. There's the Bible, and then there's God. The Bible has proof or information that we need to succeed and just to grow and trust and have faith, but God is more than what we already know. And it's okay to just seek help, and it's okay to explain yourself, and it's okay to understand that there's labels for things that we can't explain. There's labels for things that are not in the Bible. Mental health and counseling wasn't written in the Bible, and back in the day there was a different time. Like now there's a different time. Now we have more research to understand what we're going through, and I feel that's also why the church doesn't talk about it enough, because they are very Bible based, and some churches, they don't go beyond the Bible. They don't go beyond what God is now, or how we can use God in the present day, because the Bible was written such a long time ago. So
that was a lot.
I was reading so much. Some churches can be emotional abusers. They try to do well, and I want to believe that some churches, they mean well, they just don't do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, but you can always I feel like a lot of people always have quote unquote good intentions. Yeah. But their intentions aren't always thought through with their actions. Right. And so I feel like a lot of times like that can happen in the church, and we've both been through it. But yeah, I can. Other times I would say there's been a lot of progress in churches lately, just because I feel like things are starting to be a lot more modernized, and people are starting to realize like it's okay to talk to a therapist and to talk to Jesus. Like it's okay.
And it's okay to meditate, and it's okay to do yoga. It's okay
it's okay.
That was frowned upon. People have to realize that the Bible is here, but God is bigger than that. You have to go beyond what you're reading. You have to go and dig deep. Like, what does God truly want from me? What is God truly saying in my life? You know, how can I use the things that are around? Because essentially, if you believe in God, you believe God created everything. So if you put certain things on your heart that is good, remember God is good, then it's from God. So if meditating and just sitting in stillness is calming and relaxing and it's good, it's probably because God created it for a reason. And it's probably because God
it's like healing. It's healing to the mental health. Like it's healing to all of those things that you're going through in your brain and in your mind. And I think because people have just been so used to tradition and religion, like even myself, like I was raised in a very strict church. Like any type of emotion, feeling, this, that, whatever, like it was like, no, like I rebuke it, like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it wasn't until like I stepped into like this freedom that like God gave me, that like it's okay to have problems, like it's okay to feel the ways that you feel, it's okay to go through things in your life and think crazy thoughts, but it's not to keep those thoughts, it's to think through it, pray through it, let it go, and move forward. And I think that's like the hardest thing that people that a lot of people don't know yet, and it's kind of sad because it's like people are still going through this every day. So I mean, for sure. Okay, so we definitely went longer than we're supposed to, but let me just ask like one more question. Okay, so my last question would be, with your experience, with what you've done and what you're going through, what would you say, like if you could tell someone who's interested in the mental health field, interested in nonprofit, like interested in anything, what would you tell that person who's starting up? Like what is the most sound advice that you can give, you know, like from what you've gone through and what you've been through, to help someone, you know, on their way?
I would say be open to evolve by listening to people who have more experience, and to remove your pride when it comes to what you think is best for your business, because it may not be, because this is your first time starting a business. So I would say take advice. Obviously, listen to the advice, see if it works for you. You can always take it or leave it. But if someone is in a position where they have multiple businesses or they've done it before, pretty good chance that they've seen many different failures, and to help prevent you, they'll probably give you that advice from love, hopefully, with good intentions.
Yeah.
So I would say if everyone's starting a business or everyone's starting a nonprofit, do your research, make sure you know what your mission is, what your purpose is. File your 501(c) as soon as you can, and get the best way to market your nonprofits is just to act in love. Like, you are just naturally your nonprofit. You're your walking nonprofit. You're your walking purpose. You're your walking mission, and not to feel ashamed of your testimony or why you started it or anything like that.
I love it. I love it. That's so true. That's good. That's really good. No, seriously. Okay, cool. So that is it. That is all we have for today. So I want to say thank you so much, Lydia, for joining me. I'm honestly so thankful. I love you so much. And I'm happy that we're doing this and we're excited. So stay tuned for next week, 2 o'clock. I'm going to have a new special guest that I'll be posting this week that's going to be joining me to get this thing going and rolling. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any comments, questions, anything like that, feel free to message us. Be sure to follow Lydia. I'm going to put her handle in this post, and then as well follow Be Resilient and her as well bridal store. But you didn't even say the name. Did we say the name?
No, store? Oasis Bridal.
Oasis Bridal. So I'm going to make sure to tag everything so you guys can follow her along and support. So again, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Much love. Bye, guys. See you